Good evening, viewers. Tonight, Saturday night, Memorial Day weekend. Thought we would do a little different type of a segment tonight here at the House of Horsepower. You know, I watch a lot of different forums on and off, not religiously, but I follow some other machine shops and racers and different YouTube channels that I find interesting. And one thing's pretty common. Everyone always shows the pretty much the good side of everything. The machine shops show, the LS I built for $300 that makes 3,500 horsepower and goes 390s on a budget. The car I bought, the 70 Super B I bought for $700 that was originally a 446 pack car and now is worth $18 million, and different shop tech tips of running new equipment and doing different fascinating things. And I just thought I'd do something a little different. I don't see much of this, and I come across this not often, but I do come across a lot of shop horror stories. Stories maybe not gruesome, like, getting chopped up in a lathe or something like that, but stories that you don't hear about, jobs that go sour, things that go awry in the shop, bump in the night, and just certain things that at times make me hate my job. And tonight I thought I would do a segment called Machine Shop Tales from the Dark Side. And it's going to be a more of an emphasis on jobs and projects that have went wrong. Now, I'm a person of high, I hold a high level for myself in what I do. And when things don't go well, it's really a black eye, and it really gets me down, pisses me off. And I beat myself up a lot, and I'll look at, like, why, watch these other guys' channels, I'm not going to mention names in particular, but, channels like Steve Morris, TKM channels, everything's always so grand and great. I mean, it can't go good and grand all the time. I mean, put it this way, Black Halloween Cat. It can't go good all the time. I mean, there's no one that's perfect. The only one that's perfect is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ himself. And I just think a lot of people don't show the dark side of the business. And I got to say, I'm no expert. I don't feel I'm nothing special by no means. I've been doing this a long time. That's a fact. I started doing this shit right out of high school. Well, I started doing it during high school and stayed with it ever since. And there's been some trials and tribulations along the way, and there still is. But I'm going to get into the first episode tonight, and if you guys like it, hit me up in the comments, and I'll continue it. Maybe a bi-weekly or a once-a-month deal on a Saturday night when there's not much going on. Saturday night, historically, growing up in the 70s and 80s on TV, there wasn't much good on, but corny-ass shows. Remember Tales from the Dark Side? Well, anyway, I'm going to do kind of a format like that. In the meantime, I did go get the other funny car back today from the other Prince brother. He did get done the fabrication work, and maybe tomorrow I'll go over a little bit of that. Did a slam-up job on getting the transmission cross mount fabricated. Got rid of the handbrake, got the brake pedal in there, the fuel pedal in there, the loud pedal. We got the 3/8 wall aluminum containment for the drive shaft. So that came out good. So I pushed the altered / S&W funny car in the trailer. And tomorrow I'm going to get to work on this a little bit. It's a long weekend. So I got a few things going on. But as for tonight, I'm going to do this new segment. It's more of a, horror, drama, suspense, slight comedy episode. So let's get started. And again, the names and places will be changed to protect the innocent. So here we go.
Man lives in the sunlit world of what he believes to be reality. But there is, unseen by most, an underworld, a place that is just as real, but not as brightly lit. A dark side.
The story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
So our story starts tonight, just like any other day in the machine shop, with a telephone call. Phone rings, and it's actually an old customer of mine that is well, I guess I could call him a retired auto shop owner now. He's no longer in business, but he had a prominent business, automotive business, and I've done several motors for him, high performance, street motors, race motors. I always had a good rapport with the man. But again, this segment is about some of the things that have gone wrong over the years in the machine shop. Going to show another side of the machine shop, the side that I don't think a lot of people show online. Definitely not as much as they show the good side. And again, like Jack Webb said, the names and places have been changed to protect the innocent. So we'll call our buddy machine shop owner, we'll call him Farpy. So Farpy calls one day and says, "Hey man," he said, "I got a motor over here. I want to see about getting rebuilt. A little street strip deal. It's for a buddy of mine." He said, "I'm no longer in business, but I'm helping my buddy. We'll call my buddy, we'll call him Bloopy. My buddy Bloopy got a car he needs a motor built for. It's a Mopar. He's got a motor coming out of it, kind of weak. He wants to do some drag racing. I think at the time they wanted to go to what kind of drag and drive event. It's been about, going back probably about 4 or 5 months now. Maybe not that long, but somewhere around there. I can't keep up with it all. So Farpy says he's got a 440 motor. Came out of the car. It's kind of weak. I don't know. He really don't want to wait. He said, "What's your lead time looking like to get a motor built?" And as always, and probably one of the other downsides of the small machine shop is we're always out on lead time. And if I tell you 6 months to get a motor built, it's probably going to be more like a year. And it's my fault. I overbook and under deliver all the time. And it sucks. I've been doing that for a long time, and I'm trying to get away from it. My son Anthony's trying to help me with it, but I try to help everyone the best I can. A lot of times it just doesn't work out. So anyway, Farpy says, "Listen, he's got this 440. He needs rebuilt. I didn't know. Do you have anything on hand, ready to go?" Which is kind of an oddball question. No, I really don't. Then I got to thinking, wait a second, well, what exactly is he looking for? Well, he's just looking for like a little mild big block. Well, I don't know if you guys followed the segment a while back. It's been a year now since I went down to Dan Dvorak's estate sale and I bought some equipment. And you remember, if you followed along, I just couldn't help myself. I bought this wagon that belonged to Dan for $129. And while we were in between messing with the funny car and all, I thought I would slam a little motor together, leave the patina on it, and just make a cool shop car with a hot little motor in it. So, and if you back up through the pages, you'll see I built a cool little 440 to go in it. And I just had the 440 finished on the stand. This was a slant 6 car, and I changed the K-member in it, put some drag shocks on it. I actually rebuilt the whole front end. I was getting ready to put the motor in. But being a business owner, as always, I said, well, honestly, I do have a motor. Wasn't really thinking about selling it. It's a personal motor I built for myself. It's nothing serious. It's basically a stock rebuilt 440 with, hot little cam and a little bit of cylinder head work. Probably maybe 500 horsepower at best. We did a little bit of head work. I brought the compression up to about 10.5 to 1. Not a pro stock motor, just something putting that wagon sound cool, and maybe if I want to go to the track, turn some 12-second times. So Farpy said, man, that motor sounds like it would be awesome for him. Sound like that would really be up his alley. He said, what are you asking for the motor? I said, well, I don't know. I had a core I rebuilt. I said it's a later core. It's a 440. It's a motorhome core out of a mid-70s RV. So it's an externally balanced cast crank 440. I said it's got stock rods in it, but I cut the crank, reconditioned the rods, put some ARP bolts in it. I got an old antique set of TRW forged step domes in it, the real small step domes, because it was a big number 452 open chamber head, so still only had like 10.5 to 1 compression. Had the Comp Cam's version of a purple shaft, dual plane intake, and that's all it was. And like I said, I did a little bit of head work, some pocket porting. I think I actually did a segment on the cylinder heads here at the shop. I think the title of that segment was Low Tech Mopar Cylinder Heads. So anyhow, I said, the motor's ready to go. It's manifold to pan, oil pumps primed. I had an old set of PRW full shaft roller rockers I had laying around. I put them on there. I said, for me to make it worthwhile to sell it, ready to go, I said, I'd really need to get about $5,000 for the motor. So he said, okay, well, I'll relay it on to my customer. So in the meantime, the customer actually called me. I didn't really know the customer. I mean, I knew who the customer was, but it wasn't like a buddy. He wasn't a former customer of mine, like the guy that called the shop, like Farpy was, that owned the automotive shop. He was a customer that I probably built a dozen motors for him over the last decade until he went out of business. So his customer, Bloopy, calls me, and Bloopy says, hey man, I got the 440 core that came out of my car, the one I wanted to get rebuilt. Can you use the core? And I said, well, yeah, I got, at least I could get the core back and have another core to, when I get back on rebuilding the motor, because the motor you're thinking about buying is my personal engine for my little wagon. But, I could use the money. The funny car is really pressing it to get together, so I could funnel the money into that. So he said, well, what will you give me for the core? I said, well, a core, an unknown shape. No, it's all there. It's also manifold to pan. So I said, okay. I said, but honestly, I don't really pay more than about $500 for a core, not knowing what they are. Well, he said, I can understand that. He said, I'll tell you what, give me $1,000 for the core. I'll bring you the motor and $4,000 cash, and we'll call it a deal. So I said, well, the 440 was something I built in my spare time here in the shop, and I had some of the parts. And, if it was a customer's job and I built, it would have been an easy $6,000 motor. Because, you look up the parts, for a Mopar. It had, yes, it was a stock bottom end reconditioned, so it had a used block, used crank, used rods reconditioned with ARP bolts. New TRW pistons, new old pistons that I bought from another speed shop, but they were never used. Molly rings, Clevite bearings, brand new comp cam lifters, new valves in the heads, new springs, retainers, oil pump, timing chain, the whole 9 yards. So, it was, the money was there. It probably had an easy $3,000 in parts in the motor. So I was like, well, I'll just roll it over, get $4,000 cash, and get his core back. So that's what we did. Came and got the motor. About 2 weeks later, customer calls me up and says, man, he said, we got this thing running. Holy shit. Are you sure this motor's streetable? And I said, yeah, it's streetable. Well, why do you say that? Well, man, it's radical, man. This thing idles like, I forget what term he used, idles like a pro mod or something, or, he said, it just seems really radical. I said, well, it's got a cam in it. It's a 440 with a 250 at 50 duration cam with a tight lobe center. Well, not even tight. It was probably around 110. I said, but it's probably got a little bump to it. Oh, man, it sounds awesome. So, hang up the phone. It's always good to hear from a customer that thinks he's got, what his money paid for and happy with it. So I'm happy with him for that. So Farpy calls, his mechanic guy, tells me the same thing. Man, I got this thing running. I got it timed. We originally tried to put a Phytech on it. I was like, a Phytech? Now I'm old school. I mean, you can see from back in the day, from when I was a teenager. I love blown alcohol, mechanical fuel injection, and carburetors. I'm just not that guy. I'm not Kevin Mullins by no means. I'm not, fuel tech. I'm old school, horsepower, hook hard from the backyard kind of guy. So I said, so you got a fuel tech on there? Not a fuel tech, a Phytech? I think that's what he said he put on there. Yeah, he said, I couldn't get this thing running worth a shit. I should have listened to you and put a double pumper on it, and I got a double pumper on it now, and man, it's strong now. So I said, well, good. I said, I've had a few customers that went with Phytechs and some of the bargain basement fuel injection. I don't know. I shouldn't say bargain basement. Phytech isn't a bargain basement fuel injection by no means. But I've had some off-brand electronic fuel injections guys put on motors I've built. And, I've heard horror stories on that end. So anyway, he put the double pumper on there and said, man, he said, it's running now. It's running good. So I said, okay, cool. Glad to hear it. Keep me posted. He's supposed to go to some kind of drag race or some kind of street drag race or something like that. I said, let me know and keep me posted on how it goes. Bet, definitely. Hang up the phone. Well, the guy was getting ready to go out of town. I don't remember what weekend it was, but he was going to leave on the following Friday to go somewhere. I don't know if it was Power Tour or it might have been that thing my buddy Pete Studwell does where he goes once a year where they drive around the racetracks or some shit. But anyway, he was getting ready for the following weekend to leave. So Friday night, finished up here in the shop, closed up, went in the house, took a shower, getting ready to take the wife out for dinner. It's about 7:30, phone rings. It's Bloopy. Hey man, question for you. What's up? Something's wrong with this motor. I said, really? What's going on? Man, it was making a funny noise. I said, a funny noise? Okay, explain the noise. Well, man, it was running good, ran good in the driveway, ran good at the house, took it up the street, got on it a little bit, not too hard, just, got on it a little bit, and then it died, and then it was real hard starting, and then, we got it started back up, and now it's got a hell of a vibration, and it's making a hell of a noise. I said, well, that doesn't sound good. I said, okay. I said, does it sound like valve train? Is it, and I'm trying to think, had a flat tappet cam in. I told him to use Penn grade braking oil. That's what we use. And, I've had horror stories with guys wiping cams out, not breaking them in right. I said, no, I broke it in. Farpy broke it in for me, and he's broke cams in before, and everything was good with the cam, and it ran real good, but now something ain't right. I said, okay, it's something I need to come look at. Well, man, I really wanted to go to this race the following weekend or whenever. I don't know exactly what was the following weekend this race was going to be. So I said, okay. I said, well, the best bet is, and the guy lived out of town, I don't know, 40 minutes or so, maybe an hour from here, maybe a little longer. I don't exactly remember where he lived. I said, well, there's nothing I could do with it in the car if it's got a major problem like camshaft or lifter failure. You have to pull it out and bring it back to me. And, anytime someone's coming back I take it personal. It's like a black eye. I don't care. You could build 500 killer motors. The next one, if it goes sour, it sucks. It's a problem. It's the one everyone's going to remember for the next fucking year, whatever. So I said, man, well, yank the motor out and bring it in and let's see what's going on. Yeah, great. Be over Monday morning with it. So Monday morning comes, pulls up with the motor. Anthony pulls it out, forklift. We bring it back. I take a glance at it. This thing's federally fucked. This thing's got a fucking rod through the pan. This thing ain't making a noise. This thing's blown the fuck up. So I'm like, holy shit. Man, he kept saying, I don't know, man. I think a rod bolt just broke. I think it was just parts failure. I just think a rod snapped. Well, now here's the part of the business where I got to play Magnum PI, Barnaby Jones, private investigator detective. Because you could only go on what the customer's telling you. And I'm not saying the customer's going to bullshit you. They could be telling you the truth. But normally, when something comes in broke, it's always like, man, it was just running good till it wasn't. I didn't do nothing. I didn't take it over 4,800 RPMs and just slung the rod out. Well, it was basically a stock bottom end reconditioned 440. But a 440 is pretty beefy. It's not really something that just slings the rod out. The rods, I magged them. They were stock rods. We magnafluxed them. We put ARP bolts in them. I can't see, I've used plenty of stock 440 rods in big block Chrysler bracket motors, that go 6,800 every weekend for guys, low buck guys that can't afford, K1 or Molnar or, good H-beam rods. So, we've been using stock rods forever. We've been using stock rods in 440s before there were a lot of choices for aftermarket rods. So anyway, I said, leave the motor with me. I'll handle it. We'll find out what's going on. I'll take care of it. I said, right now, just looking at what we got going on here with the rod slung through the block, I said, the block's trash. The crank's trash. I said, what I'm going to do for you is that motor you gave me as a core that I gave you $1,000 credit on. I said, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you that motor back. And I said, we'll go ahead and use the parts out of that and we'll fix that. I said, but, if there's something you want to change now, let me know now. Because again, this was a stock bottom end. You got a good 440 stock bottom end. I'll take, and I'm going to call it the turquoise engine because that motor came in, it was turquoise in color. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. I said, fix another stock 440 bottom end. We went ahead and pulled apart the orange motor. My motor was orange. Pulled it all apart. And lo and behold, there was nothing good in the bottom end. The heads were good. They had brand new stainless valves. The cam was fine. It was broken good. The lifters were good. The intake, distributor. So everything in the top end was fine. But the bottom end's trashed. I mean, the oil pan, the block. I mean, it actually broke a rod. Rod got twisted. Busted the cylinder wall in the block. Beyond even being able to sleeve the block. And I mean, the later 70s blocks weren't the thickest. So there wasn't even enough material to put a sleeve in. So I said, this is going in the trash. I'm just going to give you your core back and we'll fix that. So he said, well, what's it going to cost me? Well, I said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep it stock? Well, what would it cost to put some H-beam rods in it, maybe a better crank and some better pistons? I said, well, if you're looking at doing that, easily going to be $2,500 for a better rotator. So he said, brother, I don't have the money for that. I said, well, that's no problem. I can put it back together like it was. I said, anytime I feel like something's my fault, and I'm not admitting fault at this point. I'm just saying, I'm going to help you out. We're going to see what's going on with this, and I'm going to help you out with it. Because you didn't have the motor long. Supposedly, you put the motor in the car, it ran great. You went up the street and got on it one time and it blew the fuck up. So, I mean, that doesn't look good. Doesn't look good on me. So, this is one of these situations. It's not going to come out with anybody really being happy at this point, besides giving you a brand new motor for free. And at this point, I'm just not satisfied with myself that this thing just blew up, because I did something wrong. And again, I'm a machinist. I've been a machinist since 1988. I'm not Jesus. I'm a human. I make mistakes. Things happen. Could I have made a catastrophic mistake and something happened in this motor blew up. That's possible. It's a possibility. Is it probable? I don't think it's probable because I built this motor for myself. Not that I did anything extra for myself or left anything out for myself, but I did it to go into my car and I didn't want a problem, so I did it to the best of my ability. And you can only do shit to the best of your ability. I mean, there are guys that are just born great. I'm not one of them. I do the best I could do from what God gave me. Would I rate myself as an expert? No. Would I rate myself as half-assed? No. If I had to rate myself, I would say I'm marginal. I do the best I can. I mean, there are guys that are born to be NFL players, ball players that are just great from the time they grab a ball. I tried playing a ball when I was in elementary school. I sucked. I knew I wasn't going to be a ball player and I would never be one. So I quickly gravitated to things that interest me more, which was the internal combustion engine. And I stayed with that ever since. Anyway, back to the 440. I said, man, we are slammed here in the shop. I said, what I'll do is when I get some time, I'll go ahead and pull the motor apart, the turquoise 440, the one I gave you $1,000 for. Remember, I got $4,000 and a $1,000 core. I'm going to give you that $1,000 core back. I'll tell you what, well, I'll clean it up. I'll service the crank. I'll fix the rods, put some rings and bearings in it, and I'll put we'll put the top end on there from the motor I built for myself. Great. What is that going to cost? I said, man, you paid for the rings, bearings, and gaskets. Figure $500. Good deal. Let's do it. So in the meantime, we're busy working on stuff. Shit's happening. We're building motors. We're getting shit done. He calls me up. Hey, man, how's it coming? Man, to be honest with you, I haven't had much time to work on it yet. I'm getting ready Monday morning. We're going to pull that 440 apart, get it cleaned up, see what's going on with it. So that following Monday, we pulled that 440 apart to see what was happening. And lo and behold, that one was just about as fucked up as the one that blew up in the car. And it's actually still sitting here on the stand in the dirty teardown shop. So not only did it have spun mains and blue connecting rods, every main bearing was beat out of this thing. Every rod bearing was beat out. The fucking crank was already 30-30, tore up. The block is already 40 over. So I'm like, fuck, we ain't got shit here. You know, it had junk heads on there, but we weren't using the heads. The top end off the orange motor was still in great shape. Obviously, I'm going to have to pull some valves out to make sure it didn't bend any valves. These are the heads that came off them. They've been sitting on the shelf. But we got to pull the valves out to make sure it didn't bend any valves. Because it did send a piston into one of the chambers. Not hard enough to hurt the head, but it could have been a valve. But it's going to handle that. You know, it's got good springs, 10-degree keepers, titanium retainers. You know, like I said, I built it for myself. It's a little street motor. Well, the turquoise 440's garbage. Everything in it's garbage. The rods, I mean, there's not a good full set of rods there. The crank's trash. And the block possibly can be salvaged at 60 over, but it needs to be at the minimum. I need to put the caps on it and line hone it, possibly line bore it first and then line hone it and see if we can fix the block. So now we don't even have any good parts there. So I'm like, well, shit. I started thinking, after seeing them main bearings so beat the hell out of that motor, I called them up out of the blue, and I said, hey, man, I said, this turquoise 440, was that in your car? Yeah, right away, yeah. But it ran like shit. That's why we took it out and needed a motor, and we were going to bring it over to you to get rebuilt. I said, okay, so it was in the car. Now, the motor looked pretty weak, so it didn't look like it had enough power to kick the rod out, but it had enough power to eat itself up. So I said, do me a favor. I said, the car at your house, the motor's out of it, obviously, transmission's still in it. I said, got 727 in it? Yeah. I said, send me a picture of your torque converter. Yeah, no problem. So he sends me, he said, the converter's in the transmission, but it's sitting in the transmission in the car. I said, just send me a picture of the flywheel side. So he sends me a picture. Now this here is a regular, this is an 8-inch ATI. It's not the same converter he had. He had a run-of-the-mill B&M Torque Master, like a fucking $250 street shit converter. Now, I don't know if you guys know, once we got into the 70s, I think 73 and up, Chrysler stopped producing the forged steel 440 crankshaft. Now, I don't have another one here to show you. I could walk back in the other shop and show you the crank that's fucked up in the other motor, but it just looks like an old cast crank. So all the cast crank 440s are external balance. Now, I know that. He knew that because he told me when he was bringing me that core, this is a later model 440 external balance. I said, well, fine. The 440 I'm getting ready to give you that I built for myself is an external balance. And I had when the motor left out of here, it left with a harmonic balancer on it. And I showed him the weight. I said, you can see it's external balance. Just, yeah. I'm a Mopar guy. I know all about it. Okay. I wanted to mention it's external balance. Yeah, no problem. Well, lo and behold, he had his external balance harmonic balancer that was on the motor when it left here. But his torque converter was a regular old internal balance. Now, for those that don't know, the Mopar, compared to a Chevrolet, the flex plate on an automatic is built on the converter, on the street converters. Meaning the gear with the teeth are on the torque converter. And anyone on here that's watching, my buddy Anthony down in South Carolina, a lot of guys know that take a small block Mopar, a 340 small block's internal balance, a 360 Mopar's external balance. So you can't run the same torque converter. Just like you guys that know about Chevys, 400 small block factory, I'm talking factory shit now. Factory 400 has a flex plate with weight on it, has a counterbalance flywheel, has a counterbalance harmonic balancer. Stick shift car, counterbalanced, unless it's internally balanced, which this motor wasn't, and it was specified that it was externally balanced. So after I realized he had an internal balance torque converter on the car, I sent him a picture of an external balance torque converter in another customer's car that I just happened to have saved in my phone. And I said, do me a favor, look at these two converters and tell me, what difference do you see? He texted me back, well, the converter you sent looks like it got some kind of plate welded on it, like a weight, maybe like a counterbalance. I said, well, there you fucking go. I said, you put you put a regular internal balance 727 converter in the car. Now, a lot of the cheap converters for the Mopars for 727, the low buck converters, they only make an internal balance converter. To fix that, you have to buy a flywheel, and the Mopar flywheel is a little square looking deal, doesn't have any teeth on it. But J&W makes the wheel that has the weight on it. If you don't have the proper converter, you have to buy that weight. Now, when we balance external converters, specifically a Mopar external balance 440, which I balanced it, because I balance everything, because I own a balancer in a machine shop, so whatever the hell comes through the fucking door, especially if it's for myself, it's getting balanced. I have these special hubs that bolt on the crank flange that have different weights on them that can simulate the external balance. Obviously, on a Mopar, I can't run the crankshaft with the torque converter hanging way out here, so I have to put these drive hubs on here to balance them. And this is just something specific for tooling for the balancer to balance the crank. So the crank was balanced externally. So I said, do you realize I'm getting ready to build you a third motor that you're going to put in there and blow it the fuck up because you got the wrong torque converter? Well, I don't understand. So I tried to explain it several times. You got the wrong torque converter. Either you get the right torque converter or you buy an external balance flex plate. I said, basically, you guys fucked this motor up. You blew up the first motor, beat all the bearings out of it. The second motor beat the bearings out of it. Probably beat a bearing out, started to spin the bearing, got the rod cocked in there on the crank, broke the rod, made catastrophic damage. Oh, wow. So we left it at that. That was the end of that phone call. Oh, about 2 days later, his mechanic, Farpy, calls me and says, man, he said, I put that torque converter in there. He said, but I didn't know there was a difference in Mopar. I'm not a Mopar guy. I said, well, there is. You know, I said, your customer's saying, or your customer, your buddy, whatever you want to call him, he's saying you put it in. He hired you to put the motor in. You put the wrong torque converter in. Farpy said to me, well, I put the converter in he gave me. I said, well, regardless, you put the fucking wrong torque converter in there. You put a torque converter in there. Not only is the first motor blown up, have main bearings and all beat out of it, I said, the second motor you blew up, I said, I could build you 9 more motors. And if you keep putting that torque converter in there, you're gonna blow them motors up too. Oh, man, yeah, you're right. Oh, I looked into it. I Googled it up. You're right. And his next remark was to me, man, this situation is just bad for everyone. Well, yeah, it's bad for me because I'm in the middle of this. But, you know, do I feel like I need to build a motor for free for this guy? I'm sure he feels like I should, but I'm debating how I should handle this. So, in the meantime, me and Farpy hang up, and he's like, yeah. And I said, Farpy, I said, if this guy wants to fix the motor, he needs to come up with some parts. I said, because the motor he gave me as a core that I gave $1,000 towards off the bill, it's federally fucked. There's nothing good there. So, I could probably find another motor. And then I said, all right, find another motor, and we'll go from there. Of course, I'm not going to leave him high and dry. Anthony's going to be pissed off with me because I'm going to be a good guy and give him a discount and fix the motor and do something for him. But I'm not going to buy him a block, crank, pistons, and rods when I've already been screwed out of $1,000 off my motor by getting a motor that wasn't any good to fix for myself. Gave it back. It's not any good. So there's $1,000 I'm out right off the bat. So hang up the phone. I don't hear nothing for about another 2 weeks. Bloopy sends me a text message. Hey, man, how's the motor coming? I'm like, what am I in the fucking Twilight Zone here? How's the motor coming? It ain't. You need parts. You need crank rods and pistons. Well, I still don't understand how it blew up. I mean, the motor never vibrated. Well, you say it didn't vibrate, whether you didn't feel the vibration or not. It had an internally balanced torque converter on an externally balanced motor. So we all know that was wrong, whether you didn't feel it or not. You thought the motor was just radical. It had a vibration, and it turned the bearing and blew up just like the first motor. So that phone call kind of ended with that. Next phone call I get is, hey, man, just get my stuff together. I'm going to come pick it up. Well, okay. Now I see, the customer's pissed off, but what am I supposed to do? I built one motor. I sold Carb to Pan, which I believe was a good motor, for $4,000 and $1,000 core. I took in on trade, knocked $1,000 off on a $5,000 bill, got $4,000 and supposedly a good core. That wasn't worth a shit. In the meantime, I call Farpy back and tell him, listen, well, he don't want to buy another torque converter. Well, if he don't want to buy another torque converter, he's just going to blow up another motor. The only other option he has, and I told him, he could find a forged steel 440 crank from a 72 and earlier 440. We could build a motor with that, and then he could keep his torque converter. So he either needs to buy a good crankshaft, or he needs to buy a torque converter if he's going to buy another cast crank 440. This is just the way it is. So these are some of the tales of jobs that come across that just turn into a horror shit show. And just like a cheesy horror movie, how it ends never makes sense. So far, this one's ending the same way. So if you found that enjoyable, or maybe you found it boring, I don't know. This is our new Saturday night special, Tales from the Dark Side of the Machine Shop. And again, I wish there wasn't any. I think a lot of the shops probably do have issues with jobs. They just don't advertise them or bring them in the light. But I thought I would bring some realist stuff in the light. This is the real world here. The real world of the Prince Brothers. This is reality TV. And in reality, it's not all roses and wallies and trophies and record-setting runs. There's a lot of bullshit that goes along the way with it, and keeps you on your toes and makes you sometimes wonder if this is something you want to continue doing. But I've been doing this for so long, I'm gonna stay at this point and just do the best I can do. But that's my story on the Dan Dvorak 440 that was for my car that the customer blew up, and now we're in a debacle on what should be done. So drop a comment, tell me if you like stories like this, if you don't, and what you think about it. And tomorrow, Sunday, Labor Day weekend, I'm gonna get back and working on the car, do a little segment on what I'm working on here in the shop. So as that guy, was his name, would say, Alfred Hitchcock would say, good night, or does he say good evening? Hope you enjoyed our show. Good night. And I just want to say, you know, situations like this that happen in shops, I mean, they thoroughly suck, because, you know, no one's going to win in the game. You know, there's no money to be made. Customer's not going to be happy. And of course, you know, this day and age with social media and all the shit out there, it's always going to be, you know, I got my motor done and it blew right the fuck up. That's all you'll ever hear. You'll never hear the full story. And you got to be really, you got to have real thick skin to do this shit, because there's, you know, problems do happen, and you got to play detective, and you got to go through everything to see if you could forensically figure out what's going on. Sometimes you can't, but in this one, it was a clear case of why the motor failed. Would I help the customer? Sure, I'll help the customer. Am I going to buy thousands of dollars worth of parts, being we don't have any parts now to fix a motor? I can't do that. I can't afford financially to do it. Even if I wanted to do it, I couldn't. Nor do I think I'm, you know, that RPM machine, Prince Brothers Racing, should be held liable to do it. You know, we've had lots of good jobs that have come through, and we've had a lot of horror stories like this that have happened through the years. I hate when they happen. It works on me. It keeps me up at night, because, I mean, it's a black eye. You know, it's nobody wants a disgruntled customer. Nobody wants someone to say that you built them a motor that blew up. But shit happens. I've had plenty of motors that this has happened before, and I could say there's been times things have been my fault. Absolutely. But I'm here to say, I'd say 90% of the time, we've always found out something else that was in the mix that caused the motor to fail prematurely. So, again, I'm no super duper Steve Morris by any means. I do the best I can for what I have to work with. I hate that this kind of stuff happens, but I thought it would be interesting to have a twist like this and show, you know, some different aspects of things that do go wrong, and even if it's for your entertainment, you know, if it's entertaining, I'll try to do one every so often, because this kind of stuff does happen. But all right, guys. On a regular note, you have a good weekend, and I'll get back with some of the work we're gonna get done on the funny cars this weekend, hopefully, or maybe the boat, or maybe some customer stuff. I don't know. Whatever it'll be, I'll be here in the shop. Yeah, guys, have a good Saturday night.